Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. If you have a mom, you'll love our podcasts. Here are your hosts, former Fox News political correspondent Joel Waldman and his mom, Carmela, a licensed marriage therapist and Holocaust survivor.
Carm, as always, I've got a bone to pick with you. I've completely lost track of episode numbers. We're on season 2 now. It's amazing we've gotten this. Yeah, season two. We're driving here, and the first thing you say to me today is, "I have a thin skin." Now, let me tell you something.
Correction. I need to correct the whole.
Correct it then. Correct it.
You said that people will go insane with social media, that it will destroy the world.
I said social media will destroy the world.
And I said only those who have a thin skin and give a blank about what people
And you
say.
said I have a thin skin.
Then I said you have a thin skin.
Carmela, I worked in TV news for 25 years, much of it in front of the camera. I remember one time at Fox 5 in New York City, someone said, "Hey, Waldman, I hate your ties."
And you were hospitalized after that?
And I kept moving right along, Carmela. I've gotten rejected more times than you've taken breaths in your life. And for
I
you
don't
to,
like to be rejected.
Yeah, you don't put yourself out there. I've been I have
don't, exactly. I'm too big a coward.
So I think you're projecting.
No, I tell you what, I'm very self-protective. I don't like you go out on a limb. You are right. You are in a profession where you are constantly.
So how do I have a thin skin then? I am worried about my double chin. You forced me to shave because I'm back on air. And I have a double chin now.
We can do this in the car on our private time.
Okay, we have an amazing guest today. She is, before you blow it, as you usually do, you are about to blow it. We already interviewed her. That's why I'm trying to get Carmela to pretend she didn't. But anyway, her name is Eliana Salzhauer. She is an old friend, but happens to be a Surfside.
What did I teach you? I taught you one thing today. Old-time friend.
An old-time friend, not an old friend. And she happens to be a Surfside town commissioner, which is the town where this awful building collapse happened. And she has incredible insight. And we will be right back to speak to her on the other side of this break in the main schmooze.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
So, Carm, kind of a serious tone today. We have an interesting guest, a difficult guest in some ways because my wife's name is Eliana and our guest's name is Eliana. And when I speak about either, I always say the wrong name, which could get me in trouble. But Eliana is an old friend, actually, and I got tossed
Correction. An old-time friend.
What's the difference?
Because if you say old friend, that means she's old. But it's old-time friend.
Eliana, how are you?
I'm feeling old now. Thank you.
So, Eliana is actually, interestingly enough, a commissioner in the town of Surfside where the building collapsed. And I had been out of news for 3+ years until another competing network called me the morning of the building collapse and hurriedly told me to get to the town hall. When I get there, after not seeing Eliana for 30 years, she's the first person I bump into, and coincidentally, a great source. So let me tell the audience about Eliana real quickly. She is, as I just mentioned, a sitting commissioner in the town of Surfside. She's a New York City and Miami-based journalist, a network news documentary and talk show producer. Lately, she's been, I'll let her explain this, she's been producing those like ID, is that right, investigates shows, which I stay up at 3 a.m. watching about murder and mayhem. So Eliana and I have that in common. She's also worked in media relations, corporate communications. Eliana is not just an attractive woman, am I allowed to say that in 2021, but she is also incredibly smart. She went to Columbia, and it looks like she has a law degree from the University of Virginia, which isn't too shabby. And in her spare time, when she's not raising her 2 beautiful kids and raising her husband, she's actually also a stand-up comedian. Did I get that right, Eliana?
I guess so, but yeah, not a lot to laugh about lately, but yeah.
No, not at all. So starting off with the serious, tell me, it's June 24th, a Thursday, and massive tragedy in South Florida. How do you learn about it?
So I've been a vampire my entire life. I've always stayed up very, very late. I've always gotten a lot of crap from my friends and family about that, but it's all for this one moment because I was still awake. Okay. Uh-huh. I was still awake. I was just sitting down to have dinner at 1:30 in the morning, believe it or not, at like 1 a.m. And I got a phone call from the town manager, and he says, I just want to let you know, our new town manager is excellent. His name's Andy Hyatt. And I made it very clear that we need communications. He will call when something happens. It's never good news. He never calls to tell you, we found a missing dog. He always calls with something bad. It's like somebody died or kid was hit by a bicycle. So whenever he calls, I know it's not good. But he called at about 1:30, I think it was in the morning. And he tells me I'll let you know, there's been a building collapse and I'm heading there now. I don't know more. And I thought immediately, it must be like a balcony fell off of a building, because I'd seen that happen last year on Miami Beach. There was like a couple blocks from here in the 80s. There's one of those little complexes where a balcony fell off and it fell onto a car and a couple of people got hurt. I don't think anyone got killed, but that's what I was thinking when he said building collapse. And I asked him for the address, and he's not familiar with the town. He just started a few months ago. He gives me the address, and I thought, no, that's a big building. That's not a small building. That's a big building. And I said, just call me when you know more. And, I knew right away that it was bad, but I had no idea it was this bad. I mean, I had no idea that it was the entire building. Did
he know at that point? Did he have any understanding at that point, or he was just relaying the message?
He was relaying the message. He gets the phone call from, because I'm sure he was sleeping. Most normal people are sleeping at 1:30 in the morning. I'm awake till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I'm up anyway. And there's another commissioner, Vice Mayor Paul. She's also a late night person. She's always up late as well. So, and we're friends. We've been friends for years. So sometimes we'll be on the phone just talking about, our lives at 2, 3 in the morning. So I knew she'd be up as well. So when he called me, I said, did you call Vice Mayor? Because I'm sure she's up. And I think he said yes. But everyone else, he had to wake up. Most normal people are asleep. I know that some of the other commissioners go to sleep earlier. I think he had to kind of get everyone out of bed. But at that point, he didn't know how serious it was, because he just got, that initial call. It wasn't until he got down there a few minutes later that I got an update. And he said they're taking the survivors, they're bringing them to the community center. And I said, I got to get over there.
It's interesting because, as we just mentioned off the top, I'd been out of news for 3+ years, and now I'm on scene there the next morning. But I was speaking to a source in the fire department, and they're like, one of the stories, this actually came out a few days later. I was talking to him, and he said to me, the story that has not been told and still has not been told is what happened in the first 90 minutes of this building collapse. And for all those who've been living under a rock, we're talking about Champlain Towers in Surfside, Florida, which is where well over 100 people died in a building collapse back on June 24th. But anyway, he told me in the first 90 minutes, he was called out to the scene. It came in as a fire alarm call, which was obviously very minor, and then as a partial building collapse, which they're used to, like you were talking about, balconies falling off. And he said there were about 20 firefighters on scene, like the first 20. And he basically said that they did everything they were not supposed to do because, protocol and training teaches you not to ever enter an area like that. It's just way too dangerous. But these guys are first responders, and they just kind of dove right into areas that they probably shouldn't have been in. Carmela, I was worried because you were so quiet for the first. I get very nervous. When you and my puppy are too quiet for too long, it scares me.
Eliana, don't be ever scared. Eliana is here. She will describe to you what happened then, okay? She will tell you, let her tell the story. That's why she's here.
Carm teaches an important journalistic lesson. The story should be told in sound bites. So, Eliana, you arrive on scene. What do you discover?
So, first of all, I did not go to the site of the collapse. Let me just clarify for your listeners, your billions of listeners, that it might be
hundreds of millions.
Okay, hundreds of millions. It's Champlain Towers South. There are two. If you just say Champlain Towers, people are going to unnecessarily panic because there are actually three buildings that are called Champlain in town. There's Champlain South, which is the southernmost building in town. It actually is on the border of Miami Beach. And this is very important because one of the factors that plays into the potential reason why it collapsed is some construction that happened in Miami Beach. So it's very important for people to understand. This was the southernmost building in the town of Surfside. Then north from that is a building, and it was built in 1981. North of that is a building called Champlain East. That is a very modern building. It was built in 1994, much later. And then one up from that is Champlain North, which was built in like 1982. So, and Champlain North is built almost identically to Champlain South. So that's why the town is looking very carefully at North right now for structural issues, because it is very similar to South. So that's just some background so people understand. And so Champlain South is the one that collapsed.
And what's the, I've seen the mayor, obviously. His name is it Charlie Burkett? Is that his name?
Let's not talk about him. How about that?
Okay.
We can. I can get to him later. Listen, he's running around like Rudy Giuliani. Yeah. Okay. After 9/11.
Yeah.
Talking about pulling people out of the rubble when everyone else has already said there's not going to. The only miracle here was Binks the cat, right?
Yes.
You got Binks the cat.
Yes. Hold on. By the way, Carmela, did I or did I not say a cat would come out of that rubble? If I didn't tell you, I told my wife.
All right, but I still want to know what happened when you got the call.
Well, hold on. So it's interesting because, as Eliana said, Champlain North is basically built at the same time, and they think out of the same material. So,
same builder, same architect, same everything.
So what? Like, if I was in that building, there's no way in hell I'm going to sleep at night. What's going on with the building now?
Okay, so there's a big difference. Champlain South did not maintain itself. They knew there were issues and they did not fix them. Champlain North has been on top of. Remember, every building is like an island to itself. So it maintained itself. It's just like, I'm a 51-year-old and someone else who's a 51-year-old who makes different life choices, maybe in different health shape, right? Someone who eats.
Eliana swims like 47 miles a day.
I'm a swimmer, but if someone else decides to have 5 double cheeseburgers and fries every time I'm swimming laps, their arteries
talking about me
are going to look different. So anyway, the building for starters, was very well maintained. And we are focusing our efforts on making sure that building is secure. We hired a guy who's like the pro. This is a guy that is a central casting. If you were hiring like the genius scientist who's all disheveled, but he's a genius and, looks like he just may have crawled out of a subway or something. But he's great. And he is looking at Champlain North. He's been doing that all the, full time since he got here to make sure that the other buildings in town are safe.
Do you know what he does? I'm curious. Like, what does this mad architect scientist do? He examines the crap.
You want to go to construction engineering
I'm
college?
curious what they look like, what they look for.
Okay, so he's again, these are the classes that you and I skipped in college. Okay, when we were taking like poetry, beat poetry of the 60s. This guy was taking engineering. When we were taking,
19th century American lit.
When we were taking sociology because
Chaucer.
it was a
Uh-huh.
yeah, he was taking, like hard science. So this is the guy they brought in for the Pentagon for, Oklahoma City bombing. He goes into these buildings and he's like the, he does an autopsy of these buildings. He figures out which parts of it is still safe, which parts of it isn't, has to be destroyed, and what caused it. Now unfortunately, it's a lot longer than an episode of House. Like we'd all like this to be wrapped up like, he goes in and comes out and goes, aha, it's this.
But is he doing this for North, or is he doing this for the building that collapsed?
Well, right. So right now he's only doing it for North because he's not allowed in South.
Okay.
South. And we should back up because your mom's right. We got ahead of the story here. We should probably back it up.
Yeah.
Because
you always say you have to rein me in, or some term you use that I digress. Today, you don't go sequentially. It was an interesting question that you brought up. I'm very proud of you, Joel. You brought up the question, what happened in the first hour, but you don't let Eliana tell you.
My toes are
I'm
curling.
trying to be positive.
So listen, the other day, actually, I was driving and I saw like 4 to 6 massive trucks carrying debris, and I'm sure it was from Surfside, and it looked like they were kind of cataloging it. There was spray paint on the various parts of the debris. So what is going on with that the remains of the building?
Okay, so
let her finish the first 45 minutes.
You want to go from the beginning? You want to skip to the end of the story, or the beginning of the story?
I'll let you guys do it. Eliana, pick it up wherever you want.
Just look at me. Don't pay attention.
Okay. So
they woke you up.
Yes.
You are now going.
No, you're not paying attention.
No. I'm sorry. They would have woken me up because I would be already sound asleep.
All right.
You are up. You hear the second time that the building, something is wrong, and that the people are transferred to the
family center, community center,
unification center.
The floor is all yours, Eliana.
Okay, so I knew that they were taking everyone to the community center. So I had, right away I called Tina Paul, who's the vice mayor, and I said, "My gosh, have you heard? We got to get out there." And she was up also. The two of us were up. I don't know what everyone else was doing, but I said, I'm going over there. She could see, I think from her building, she had a better view of what was going on down there. We knew enough to not go anywhere near the site. The site was a very active, dangerous location. So we went right to the community center separately. We just wound up meeting up there. And that's where they were evacuating everybody to. So it was, I've covered these stories for 20 years as a journalist, where you're embedded with the rescue troops or whatever, and you're rescuing people from the floods. It's very different when it's your friends and neighbors that are the ones showing up. But there is a level of, there's that numbness, as a journalist, you're able to tolerate things that for most people would probably break them. So you have to put on I'm competent and I'm going to make these people feel better, facade. So I was able to present to everyone showing up, okay, here's where you're going, here's what's going to happen. And we had the community center spread out so that we put the people from the hotel rooms in a separate area. We put the people that were survived, like they were picked off the balconies by the rescue crews, in another area. We tried to keep, people sort of separated out depending on what trauma they had just endured. And it's surprising how many people I knew that lived in that building. There was
a hotel in the building?
There was a hotel next door. Right next door to Champlain South is a hotel.
That little building, the blue?
Yes, exactly. Yes. A little blue building. And they had to evacuate that because the pieces of the bigger building were being, fell near that building. And they were worried that the rest of the building was going to collapse, obviously. So they evacuated everyone from the hotel. And these are people that signed up to go on vacation with little kids. They were, this is the last thing they expect, is to be in a major disaster in the middle of the night. So there were all these little adorable children in their pajamas sleeping on the lounge chairs at the pool, and families. And they weren't familiar with Miami. They were just on vacation, and it was taking care of them as well as taking care of our residents who I knew. Like, I didn't realize people, for example, my kids went to Bay Harbor, the public school here. The woman who works in the front office, Miss Lopez, I had no idea she lived in that building. She shows up. I'm like, my God, you lived in that building. Yeah. Barry Cohn. Barry Cohn is a former commissioner in town who I know very well from his years of service in town. Him and his wife showed up. I was like, what? I didn't realize you don't really know where people live in town because it's an 8-block town. You don't say to someone, well, where do you live in that 8 blocks? You don't really know what buildings they're in. And so when people show up and you're like, wow. And then you kind of, I was immediately writing down all the information they gave me. So anytime I saw someone, what unit were you in? What do you remember happening? What do you think happened? As a journalist, I was doing that, but also as a commissioner, because I knew we need to find out what happened here. And people's recollections are going to be freshest right after the fact, right? The longer they have time to talk to each other or read news stories, their memory might get a little bit corrupted. So I was being very careful about writing stuff down. And I could tell right away that people in certain apartment lines were the ones that were walking in, and people that were in other apartment lines were missing, right? So I figured out which parts of the building.
And I think it was lines 1, 2, 3, 4, like 11, 12, 13, 14, something like that.
The L. Honestly, it's the more expensive units that had the ocean. They were sticking out more to the ocean. So the ones right on the end, facing the ocean, those were obviously the most desirable apartments. I believe the builder even held on to those. So the people that lived in those units were the family of the original developer. But we looked, we almost bought an apartment in Champlain North, not in South, but I'm very familiar with the building because we came very close to buying it. So I know the layouts, I know the units, I know so I had an intimate knowledge of the building that other people probably didn't have if you haven't been in the building. Because we almost came very close to buying it and we bought a house instead.
Had you ever heard of prior to the collapse, had you ever heard of any people flagging potential problems with the building or no?
So I was elected in 2020. So the problems with the building happened before I was elected. But I did know of residents just who complaining. I knew that there were issues. I knew that people had complained. Now, when they showed up, when the survivors showed up, and by the way, calling them survivors does disservice to the word survivor. But
no, don't worry. Yes. It's a generic term.
Right. So these survivors, when they showed up, they immediately, especially I remember one woman in particular kept saying, I knew it. I told them about X, Y, and Z. I knew it. She was very clear about all the problems the building had and that she had brought it to their attention and she had been concerned about it. Now, obviously, in hindsight, these are much bigger problems, but residents certainly were complaining. First thing she said is, the building was shaking like crazy when they were building the building in Miami Beach, the one next door. And we all know that when old things shake, they break, right? So there are so many things that people mentioned that night, and every single one of those probably played a role in the collapse. I don't think we're going to be able to point to one particular thing that did the building in, right? But certainly everyone had very strong opinions about the things that they saw and the problems that they had. And as a journalist, I immediately wanted to find out the why.
One of the craziest things that came up, and I thought it was like a conspiracy theory, and then found out it was actually true, but like 6 days prior to the collapse, there was a military drill off the coast of Orlando, and they detonated explosives. You've heard about this, right? And it registered as a 3.6 on the Richter scale for earthquakes. Has anyone ever talked about that with you? I mean, people just kind of totally weighed that off, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but
excuse me for asking something. Maybe I am not getting it. Or on the shore of Orlando. Orlando is inland.
Yeah, your mom's right. Orlando's inland.
I meant like north. The what is longitude, latitude? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I mean, as far north as Orlando, off the coast, is what I'm saying.
Didn't you go to public school? Don't you? You didn't have a map.
I don't know the difference. I had asked my kids the difference between a mammal and a reptile the other day. But anyway,
okay.
So
live babies.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
We have to help him as much as we can.
So,
Wait 1 second.
Anything was that ever even considered? Because that's a crazy
Okay,
thing.
so yeah, there are so many factors here that all need to be considered. And my biggest concern, and the reason I'm spending my afternoon speaking with you, aside from the fact that you're such a good friend, and we've been so close for 30 years, you've done such a good job of staying in contact. You know that you're there for me. I want to be there for you.
By the way, Eliana, when we were moving here, I talked to her, and she's like, "Move to Surfside. It's the greatest town in the world." And we moved to the town next door, Bay Harbor Islands, and she's like, "You're a loser. Don't ever talk to me."
You're dead to me. You're dead to me the minute you moved out of town. Okay?
You want to
but I do live near her brother. Yes,
I had a stepfather, and my stepfather said, "Oh, only if we could afford to live in the style that we are living in."
Yeah.
So that's Joel. He moved to Bay. But at least he didn't go crazy. Did you ever? You should visit his
Carm,
house.
let's stick to the story.
I did. We walk by it a lot, and my son pretends to defecate on your lawn when we walk by. That's the running family joke.
That's not nice. Anyway.
No, but wait 1 second.
Carm, you are digressing from the story.
No, I am not. I followed this story more closely than, when you are retired and your husband is in a wheelchair, you have some free
You're not retired.
Discretionary time.
We're trying to monetize this podcast.
Okay, I'm not retired right now. But the point was I listened to everything and I watched everything and I read everything. And I never knew that the blue building next to it was a hotel. And I was always wondering how the people continue to live in that building. It never crossed my mind that they were immediately evacuated.
Yes.
Now
they were immediately evacuated, and that building is vacant. And no one's going to be in that building for quite some time. I mean, we're keeping that area. That's part of the secure area.
Well, even in Champlain Towers, I think some of the units rented like on a nightly basis, because I interviewed a family that was here from New Jersey, and they were only here for a couple of nights, like 1 or 2 nights. Thankfully, they survived. But yeah, they were here temporarily. So I don't know if it was a hotel type situation in the building, or if they were using a relative's apartment, but they just happened to be there for a couple of nights.
Well, the town, we don't have short-term rentals in town. You're not supposed to be. The Airbnb rule is you're only allowed to do it 3 times a year, and we're very careful with that. Now, people violate that all the time, and I think that had to do with some of the missing situation, because people are on the down low renting their place, and they're not supposed to be. So people were not rushing to say, "Oh, by the way, my unit was full of a 20-person family that I wasn't supposed to be renting to." So I think that there's some level of that, and that accounts for why the numbers and the people that were unaccounted for
number fluctuated. But are they all accounted for, the missing?
No. There's still the latest numbers that I have from this morning was there are 96 confirmed, retrieved, identified bodies. 96 have been found, 88 have been identified. And when they say identified, they mean the next of kin knows, they know who it is and everything. So 88 of the 96 have been identified. There's still 11 people unaccounted for. And I think it says 238 or 204, something like that, are accounted for. So these numbers kind of change every day.
Okay, let me just insert here, just for information. Today is Bastille Day, the 14th of July, when we are getting this statistic.
Yes.
And now I'll shut up. Now he doesn't want me to talk anymore. I sense this.
It's also my son's birthday. He's 16.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. So
now you have one more viewer because he's going to watch, so you can hear me call him happy birthday.
From all I heard from Joel, it's very appropriate that your son was born on the day of the day that the French Revolution really erupted, July 14th.
Yes.
We're in America, Carm.
It doesn't matter. It's universal.
So you
want to talk about the theories?
Let's talk about the theories. That sounds good. Okay. Yes, because I mentioned that earthquake.
Yeah. So I think that, we all know that Florida is the land of the greedy developers, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be a push for the industry to try to make it sound and look like this building had such a unique set of circumstances that this could never be replicated again. And everybody else is safe. Go on and buy your condos and keep building your buildings. That's going to be what the industry wants to happen. So what I'm trying to do and why I'm engaging the media is I want to make sure that we find out exactly what happened, because my hunch tells me it's not so unique, that there are other buildings out there that are at risk, and that this is not a fail-safe situation. And so I want to ensure, and you know me, I'm a very loud mouth, so I'm not going to be quiet, but I want to make sure that every single theory is explored fully, from the one about the explosion off the coast to this this sinkhole concept, to the construction of the building next door in Miami Beach, to obviously the building was in disrepair. But there have been there's another area that people haven't looked into as much, and that's that we did a beach restoration project the year before, right before the pandemic, where we replenished our beach, and the Army Corps of Engineers trucked in hundreds of thousands of tons of sand every day in trucks, and they staged it on 88th Street right next to that building. Okay, right next to that building. So usually sand is brought in by barge, right? That's how they do the beaches, because it's very heavy, the sand.
Mm-hmm.
But lately they've been doing it by truck. And I think we need to take a look at what impact the weight of that sand, those trucks idling on that street. Remember, the truck drivers are like to sit in their car with the air conditioning running with these full load of sand in the truck. Mm-hmm. The weight of every one of these things is going to have a butterfly effect on this aging, decrepit building.
Wow.
So that may be the difference between why South came down and North is fine, because, North didn't have any of those factors.
So if I understand this,
just a parenthesis because of my curiosity.
that my toes are curling again.
Okay, I hope that
I was literally asking a question and you interrupt. Go for it.
Well, I used to have a sign
as I said it before,
on my desk, don't talk while I'm interrupting.
Age before beauty.
I need that sign.
Yeah.
But the building that is right next to it, which is still, this building is on the border between Surfside and Miami Beach. And the next building to the south is a beautiful new building. I don't know how many stories high, but much higher than the 20. The question I ask is that building okay? Because, it...
Right. So that building was, probably contributed to the collapse of this building, the construction of that building.
Yeah,
that building was built a few years ago to much stronger standards. Remember the 80s? Everything was crap in the 80s. Remember the bad clothing, the bad hair,
yes,
the bad construction materials. That building was, Champlain South was built in the 80s to the standards of the 80s with the materials of the 80s. The building next door in Miami Beach was built in, I believe it was 2018 or so. That's got top-notch materials. That's got different construction standards, post-Hurricane Andrew standards. It's got a lot. It's much more solid, that building. I think it was evacuated. I'm not sure what the situation is now. Now, obviously, people who can afford to live in that building probably have a second home somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to look at a pile of rubble and watching them pull out bodies.
And the dust,
the air quality is terrible down there.
So Eliana, are you saying, because I'm confused about this, that this was kind of a perfect storm of conditions that led to this collapse? Or are you saying that you think it's much more commonplace that other buildings are in similar conditions and could potentially collapse?
I think it's both. I think that there were enough, let's say there's 5 factors that contributed to this collapse. Mm-hmm. Other buildings somewhere else might have 3 of them, might have 2 of them. We don't know which one of them brought down the building yet. And we're not going to know for quite some time. But the first thing you got to do is take a look at, has the building been maintained? When you're born, you don't have a baby and then bring him back to the doctor 40 years later, right? You've got checkups every couple of months. I mean, your whole life is probably pediatrician appointments with your little kids.
Yes.
There's a lot of maintenance that goes into that. And that's one child, one kid, not a building that's housing hundreds of people. So, I remember.
Excuse me for interrupting. We used to live in another building from this one. And that when it had the 40th year inspection, it took a year for the inspection process, and then it took a bunch of other years, but the assessments of all the owners were astronomically high, in my opinion, and people had to go along with it. They even had the option of saying, we don't want to do this or we don't want to do that, because they were trying to save. But in this building, they also did refuse to take out a loan, and they didn't want to see the assessments,
Right.
Become astronomical.
Yeah.
So that was we always mention the Jack Benny joke. You know the Jack Benny joke? That was before your time.
Your money or your life is the punchline.
A guy stops him on a dark street with a gun to his head, and he says, your life or your money? And he thinks it over, your life or your...
I thought the joke was your wife or your money.
That's a very easy
one.
Very easy. Now, Eliana, not Iliana. Is there a...
But listen, your mom is right. Carmela, you hit it right on the head there. That's exactly the problem, is that the building, they didn't want to spend the money. There was infighting. The board resigned multiple times. Nobody wanted to pay. It was a lot of money. And people wanted to live in denial and just, they thought that it was magically going to regenerate or heal itself.
Can I just bring up another issue?
You're the host. You just bring it up. You don't have to preface it every time.
You are a producer, so be quiet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, but now you see.
You forgot.
No, wait a second.
While she's remembering, I mean, is there?
It's a senior moment. I remember.
There's a senior moment every show, at least
every
a few.
Show there is a
is there a?
He knocks it out on purpose to be superior.
Is there a time frame for this mad scientist architect to come to some sort of conclusion about what definitively brought this building down? Is there a chance that there will never be a definitive answer?
Oh, there will be answers. There'll be answers. It's just not going to happen quickly. I think that, you can't put a deadline on something like this. It's more important that we be thorough. And I think that there's many different agencies are investigating. That's what I wanted to tell you. The site itself is not even in Surfside possession. We don't control the site. Right now, it's a recovery operation. Miami-Dade Rescue's there. They're Miami-Dade, the county is handling it. That's why you see the mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, making the statements. It's her agencies are running it. Surfside police are directing traffic in town. They're doing other things in town. This is way outside the wheelhouse of anything that our small town could do. Now, after they're done with the recovery, it's going to become a homicide scene. It's an investigation, and there are agencies that are going to be investigating. So this guy, Allen, he's investigating as well, but he's only one part of it. We also have these other agencies. There's an agency that's here that's called the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. So they're a federal agency, and they are charged with getting to the bottom of what happened here. So this is not just like it's terrible that so many people died. It's horrible that it happened in Surfside, but there's a reason it happened here. And that's because it made people pay attention enough to get to the bottom of this. If this building had collapsed in another neighborhood and less people had been killed, this may have been on the news for one day and everybody moves on. But because of the magnitude and because of the demographics, quite frankly, this was a building full of upper, middle, upper class. I mean, these are millions of dollars apartments, these apartments. The world is paying attention and people want to know what happened because suddenly it could impact them. Suddenly buying a $500,000 apartment doesn't mean you're safe. Suddenly, one of the apartments in that building just sold for about almost $3 million. You would think that for $3 million, the place is not a shithole, pardon my language, right?
Uh-huh.
But obviously, and that's why this is such an important story, because it's not like some rundown slumlord building in the middle of nowhere that 10 people died in the middle of the night. This is a big deal. And so I think there's going to be a lot of attention to find out, a lot of agencies wanting to know what happened here so that they can make sure it doesn't happen again. And
yeah, it's not like the Kushners own this building, those slumlords who live one building away.
Exactly. And I didn't see her at the community center handing out anything. There was no hugs from Jared.
No hugs from Jared.
They slept like babies through the night.
No.
Get to your question, Carm. You had it. Tell me you didn't forget it.
That these condo associations, somebody should really tighten up the system.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. I agree. And that's why I'm like running my mouth, like,
Yeah, well, you are in the position of suggesting legislation to tighten it up. And they cannot just spend years bickering and resigning and kicking the can forward when
you kick the can down the road in America. Yeah.
Right. But
absolutely.
The other thought I had is that the political aspect is there now also, but human memory is fairly short. Now, events like, I'm not comparing it total non-comparison, but Pearl Harbor or 9/11, they are etched into the
fabric of America.
Fabric of the memory of America. I think this building, there is a very good chance that it will fade out at the speed of light. Okay, and then
which, by the way,
everybody's scared, and everybody's more aware and conscious. But when this news becomes old news, and when there are some answers, people will move ahead, and it can repeat itself.
This is the third
on a sandbar.
This is the third worst. This is the third worst building
collapse
in American history, behind the World Trade Center and the Oklahoma City bombing. So it's pretty significant. And I mean, the news cycle these days is about 15 minutes, and this has been in the news.
I don't think, just to correct you, I don't think that it's not, those other two things were not building collapses.
You're right. I forget how they phrase it. I mean, they were bombings.
This is one of the top 3 building collapses. There was one where like the walkways in 1980 something, the walkways in a hotel collapsed and 114 people or so died.
Where was it?
Oh, I don't remember. It's the thing. You're right. I don't remember.
Was it in the States? Was it in the States?
It was in the States. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So this is the third worst, but those other ones you just mentioned are not part of it, because this was a collapse, not a bombing.
Right.
Now, if it turns out to be a bombing, right, then that's a different story.
Right.
But so far, we're looking at it being a structural collapse of some sort.
Huh. So crazy. And now,
listen, your mom is right, Carmela. You're right. This is the problem with people's memory. They just move on to the next thing. When this was happening, I know as a journalist that we're one school shooting away from being old news. No one's going to be listening to this. And so we really have to capitalize on our moment to make the changes that need to be made, so that there's, after Parkland, everyone said, oh, they're going to take everyone's guns away. That was the last straw. And nothing happens, right? Like, we just keep raising the bar on these horrible tragedies, and still, I thought when they mowed down all the kindergartners in Connecticut, that's it. We're going to get rid of guns. But no, we got armed fishermen walking through town with their machine guns while they're going fishing, saying it's their right to do this. So there are changes that need to be made. And I'm going to be very loud and clear about those changes that need to be made so that this doesn't happen. Now, again, all I can do is try to make sure it doesn't happen in Florida, right? I'm like the smallest piece of this puzzle. There could be buildings going up right now in another state, and this could be a problem somewhere else.
How do you How do you get your voice out there? You're talking about like at town hall meetings, or I mean, how do you use your platform?
So, well, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm talking to you. I'm talking to really anybody. I'm making sure that these theories that are out there get fully explored, because I don't want them to sweep this under the rug and say, oh, it was just this one thing and everyone else is fine. I want to make sure that everyone who had a hand in this is held accountable, from the condo board to the building next door to, if it's the Army Corps of Engineers, whatever, whether it was our building inspector, Ross, like everybody played a part of this. And I want to make sure that everyone is held accountable. And I want to make sure that those bad pieces of the puzzle never connect again to make sure this happens. So what we can do as a town is, and what I plan on doing is introducing legislation to make sure that we tighten up what we can do in town. So even though the county is saying you have to check your buildings every 40 years, I'm already asked the lawyers, can we as a town say, every 30 years? Can we shorten it? Can we do that? So I intend to do whatever we can to make sure that the loopholes are closed and that this is tightened up. And deadlines are deadlines. And if you don't meet your deadline, you're out. Like, we're going to padlock your damn door and you're out on the streets to make sure that buildings comply. If we had lived in a world where everyone put on their seatbelt, we wouldn't have had to pass seatbelt laws. But we had to pass seatbelt laws because people can't have the seichel to put their damn seatbelt on. So for that reason, if we let these buildings police themselves, they were supposed to be doing it for themselves. They didn't. So in my opinion, they've lost the privilege of being able to police themselves. And now listen, I'm a Democrat. I'm all for like the government having to get involved to make sure that the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens is protected. And that's what I'm going to do. And there may be others that disagree. We live in a state where the governor doesn't like local rule. He wants to Bigfoot and say, no, we have no COVID in this state and we're not going to mandate anything. Well, I feel differently. And I feel like we have to mandate these changes for the safety and health and welfare of our residents. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Thank God for Eliana. I'd be way too tired to deal with all this. Three kids, a dog, a puppy.
Okay, see, Surfside has been famously a very, very wonderful community to live in, included in Bay Harbor and all that area there.
Well, it's much better than Bay Harbor.
I know that. I know that it's much better.
Bay Harbor is like the shanty town of Surfside.
All right.
Get to the point, Carm.
The point is that you got this unbelievably bad shock as a town. And everybody now, Surfside is now in the consciousness of so many people who never even heard of Surfside. One of the beauties of Surfside was that nobody heard of it actually, and now you have to get back to a way of living with this without it burdening you psychologically as like I'm living in a town that is a tragedy.
I mean, now lawsuits are flowing in. I think didn't a grand jury in Miami-Dade County convene, and is there going to be criminal charges brought in this now?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of things happening. The grand jury was convened the same way it was convened after Hurricane Andrew in order to look at the standards in the industry and what needs to change. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily going to result in criminal charges,
okay.
But I do think that anyone whose job it was to make sure that the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, if they didn't do their job, then they certainly need to be held accountable. And whether that rises to the level of criminal negligence, that's not for me to say. I mean, I am a former prosecutor, so I can throw the terms around, but whether those standards, whether that burden was met, I think that our state's attorney is going to be looking into that. And I think that's justified in this case, right? If you have an air traffic controller and they decide that they're going to go on a bender while they're working and the planes all crash, well, that air traffic controller is going to be sitting in the pokey, right? So maybe we need to look at who dropped the ball here and whether that was an acceptable level of professionalism or whether that was negligence, right? And so we're going to need to look at all that.
How come you didn't become a lawyer? You would have been she would have.
I am a lawyer.
I know.
I'm a lawyer in the state of New York.
Why did you not?
I was a prosecutor.
Why did you not practice? I
did practice. I was a prosecutor in New York City in Queens County for 3.5 years. And I thought it was going to be like an episode of Law and Order, but it was like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
So, I require a level of
adrenaline.
Yes, that is not in the court. Law is the slowest way to get anything done. I found that the media is the fastest way to get anything done. So, talking to you will move the needle more than me filing some kind of lawsuit or complaint or something.
Speaking of that. Selfishly, if you get any news, you come to me first. You're my source. So,
well, I just told you we're having you can talk to everyone this afternoon at Town Hall.
Town Hall, 4:00.
Yeah, no, I am.
Yeah.
My sole focus is to make sure that people are held accountable and that people don't forget, like your mom said, like Carmela said, because we don't want this to be just, something brushed under the rug like a faded memory. We also don't want it to be what Surfside is known for, right? No. We don't want to be, but we're not there yet. We still have to figure out, I want Surfside to be the reason why the industry changed, the leader in higher standards. And the whole reason I ran for office is because this town was being run like a banana republic. It was like if some trashy person wins the lottery, right? What happens to them? They're usually broke within a few years because they don't even know what to do with it. That's what happened to Surfside. Surfside was this sleepy little town with no money. They couldn't do anything. And now we're just, because of the big buildings that came here, because of the surf club, because of the high end, because of the Trumps, the Kushners, because of all of that, we are in a different level financially and sociologically, right? We're at a different sort of stratosphere there. And we need to start acting like it. We were still acting like we were some backwater banana republic. And that's what we're finding out when we're looking at the records. We're finding out that the building inspector wasn't maybe doing everything the way he was supposed to. We're finding out that his HR report, he was only evaluated like once, and it was like 10 years ago. Like, there's just not the level of professionalism in this town that there needs to be. And that's why I ran for office. And that's why personally, I've been, quote, cleaning house since I got here. We've put a new man, and I get shit for it. I get, that mayor who, we don't see eye to eye was trying to make it sound like it's a bad thing that I'm making people flee like cockroaches with the lights turned on. And guess what? I'm right. Okay. Guess what? There were cockroaches, the lights are on, and everyone needs to get out because Surfside I'm cleaning it up, and we're going to be moving forward in a professional manner if it's the last thing I do, and I get things done.
Good for Eliana Salzhauer. Let me ask you one last question.
Need a person like you, like this in Miami Beach.
Sound like my mother.
Maybe I'll go back.
My parents live 40 blocks south on Collins on the 27th floor. Should I ever visit them again?
You should make sure that you're the beneficiary of any and all policies.
Bravo, that was clever.
You might have to be my legal representative. Are you still bar certified, whatever the hell it's called?
No, she just gives you wise advice.
I have to pay my $375 every 2 years to be in good standing in New York. They have you on the hook for life.
Listen, I have a sister. Maybe you can help me cut her some way around that. But yeah, actually, ironically,
you want to get her an apartment.
Not to sound too morbid, but like 2 days after this happened, we had a podcast and I was working the morning shift. So I was exhausted. I know you have to go. We'll let you go in 2 seconds. And I went to take a little nap in my parents' unit. And all of a sudden I hear like banging, like the same sounds that people were saying they heard. Turned out they were doing construction in the unit above.
That can throw a building down. The vibrations don't underestimate vibrations.
It's scary. Eliana.
But I have to.
This Carmela is every time I try to wrap up. Every time she has somewhere to go.
I know she has somewhere to go, but I would love
Carmela,
to know.
You need your own show. You want to come work with me?
Yeah.
I'm never this aggressive. Usually I'm laid back more, but I'm very into this.
Yeah, what's your final?
No, you have been living in Surfside for how long? I wanted to know.
Over 15 years.
Wow. So you virtually were born in Surfside.
I'm an old timer. Yeah.
Yes.
The three of us should get some lunch one day.
Yes. And really get
Eliana.
We should go for borscht. Let's go for borscht.
Eliana, anything else you'd like us to know about, you discuss, or do you have to go? I have one last.
I do have to go, but I want to make sure that you keep I know you work on this podcast as well, but you work for other news agencies. I want to make sure that everyone's asking the right questions and following up and keeping the heat on, because if we need to keep the heat on.
Well, I'm going to check in with you almost on a daily basis now.
I think for sure. I have my press conference at 3 a.m.
Beautiful. By the way.
Oh, he's up late too.
Yeah, I'm a total night owl. I love that about you. How did that? Where did that? Has that just been your whole life? Do you think you have a different? Do you think you have a different circadian rhythm than everyone else?
I absolutely do. And by the way, bad things happen early in the morning. So like being late to work in the morning has only helped me. Okay.
Yes. But how do you have the energy to exercise the way you do?
I don't, it's interesting is I don't have that grief. Like people have different, I go to anger and then I get things done. So I go to like anger and shit kicking. And so it's like a different.
You don't have anxiety in the middle. Like I have too much anxiety. It exhausts me. But like, are you going to go swimming today?
I'm not swimming today. I swam yesterday.
And how far do you swim? Tell us the truth. Don't downplay
it. To Cuba and then back. I like to have coffee in Cuba, and then sometimes I swim from there to the Caribbean for dinner.
Then with Haiti for excitement.
Yeah.
Eliana,
I was in Haiti briefly, but it's a coincidence. I was not involved in any assassinations over there.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I have two last favors for you. Mm-hmm. Number one, once this link is up, I need your brother. Can I tell your audience who he is?
No.
Yeah.
Your brother is the famed Dr. Miami. And then secondly, since he is my
little brother, he's my little brother.
Your little brother. Secondly, if I continue to be nice to you, do you think that he would come on our podcast as a guest? I'm not really interested in him, but I need his social media following, to be totally honest.
But
I could ask him about penile implants. I want to get my chin reduced, things of that nature.
Listen, my brother is pretty media friendly, as you know.
Yes.
He was stopped by yesterday, which was nice. Spent some time together. Yeah. He's in the process of remodeling his office in a very interesting way. He's turning his office into a castle, like a king cat, he put a throne in his office and like a dungeon. It's quite interesting. So you may want to get a look at that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my brother's a very interesting guy. Same thing. He's got a lot of energy, obviously a lot of energy. So it's obviously genetic.
Yeah.
And he likes to use his powers for those pursuits.
How many Instagram followers does he have? Like 2 million? I think he has like 2 million.
So if I knew what Instagram was, I could answer that.
All right. Well, in any event, hopefully he'll be a future guest on the show.
I'm still building my MySpace page.
Yeah.
And my Friendster following.
The best is these jokes are all going over Carm's head.
No, they are not.
Do you know that MySpace is a defunct site?
No, that I didn't know.
All right. Eliana has
I know that she does.
Anything you'd like us to plug? Do you have a Twitter account? Do you have a MySpace account?
I'm not. You know what? This is not about me.
Excuse me.
This is not about. This is.
She said to plug that they need to make changes.
Yes.
That's what you have to plug.
Okay.
What we need home rule. Okay. We need the state to stop putting their foot on our necks here. We need to be able to have the power to make the changes to best suit our community. We are, this is an amazing community here, but we are in a very Republican state, right? And we have leadership here that feels very differently, and they tie our hands so that we deliberately cannot do things on a local level. So it would be very helpful, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, for people to take their foot off our necks so that we could make the changes to save lives, that we can make the changes, because I'm not protecting the real estate industry. I'm not protecting the condo industry. I am protecting the residents. I was elected by the residents of this town to serve the residents. I was not elected by town hall. I was not elected by the town employees. I was not elected by government. So I'm serving the people, even if I have to take down the government in the process to serve the people. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
you can't do that in Cuba. God bless America.
We need support. We need
Looks
resident
like
support.
We can't do that in America either.
Yeah.
And what we need for residents to pay attention to who's, for example, the mayor and I do not see eye to eye in this town, right? So this is not about ego. This is not about me. I don't even own a shirt that says commissioner. I think it's, the town is 8 blocks long. I did this I get paid $1 a year. I did this to serve the community. I think that, we need to make sure that it's about public service. It's not about the ego. It's not about, someone walking around like they're Rudy Giuliani at 9/11, talking about pulling people out of the rubble. We need to focus on the changes that need to be made that are less glamorous, that are behind the scenes, that are not going to get you smiling behind a microphone. And that's where the important work is going to get done.
We need more Eliana Salzhauers in this world.
And I do want to give a shout out to our town manager, our assistant, all the people in town hall who have been working their asses off to respond to this. And I want to not thank the people that sucked, which is the reason why we're in this situation, But I think that I'm really happy with with the level of response that we've gotten. I'm happy with the direction that we're going in. And I want to thank our attorneys that are really, I'm asking for documents. It takes a lot longer than I'd like, but I do get them. And I do think that we need to air out everything. And there needs to be a sort of a house cleaning at the end of the day. And we're going to get there. So we just need to make sure that everyone stays focused on the changes that need to be made.
You are a representative of Surfside, and I have to, my impression, not knowing anything about
Carmela,
it.
do you know what wrapping a segment means? This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
My trademark thing is that I talk about things I don't really know that much about. But I have the impression from the few samples that Surfside is a community that you are a reflection of the community. Is a very, people are bright, educated, young people, like in the homes. I'm not.
You're saying Eliana reflects the community itself.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Let's leave it there. Eliana, we'll do lunch or dinner at the I don't know, the borscht something. And
what about, is Wolfie still around? How about
Wolfie's is closed, and it'll be on.
Bummer.
It'll be on Carmela, and we will be right back with our news schmooze. By the way, you said you were giving us 20 minets, and I think it's 59 minutes and 13 seconds.
We appreciate every minute of it, and we thank you for your time.
Listen, I think we're gonna do a whole like a 10-part mini series, like the Tiger King, but with no tigers.
Yeah.
All right, Eliana, I'll be in touch with you offline.
All right, and thanks, Carmel. It was nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you too.
Right.
You should be so proud of your son. If he had only moved to Surfside, I would be proud of him too.
But I want to tell you something. Nobody's perfect. That's why he didn't move to Surfside.
Right.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Right back with a new schmooze. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
And Carm, for some reason, unbeknownst to even myself, I decided to keep the news schmooze this week in Asia. I have no idea. All the stories are coming straight out of Asia this week. Now, story number one. Athletes at the Tokyo Olympics are going to put their medals around their own necks to protect against spreading the coronavirus. As you know, we had Bruce Beck on, who covers the Olympics. This probably wasn't known to him at the time of our podcast, but this is a very quote unquote significant change to traditional medal ceremonies. The medals will not be given around the neck. They will be presented to athlete on a tray, and then the athlete, he or himself, herself or himself, will take the medal and put it around their neck. What do you think of this? I
have a better idea.
The Asian continent does not mess around with.
Listen to how I would do it.
Yeah.
But try to visualize it. They could take the tray, take the award, and go behind the person, where the person will not cough on them, and hang it up from behind.
Kind of like when the president puts the...
Exactly.
Yeah, but they won't do that. The Asians don't mess around. Is it worth having the Olympics? There's going to be no fans. They have to put their own medals.
I heard is that they spend billions and billions and billions, and the only way they will recoup some of the money that all the countries that participate... I'm an expert on the Olympics too. I
have very shaky hands. I could never clasp my medal. I'd be terrified. I wouldn't want to win a medal because I couldn't do it. All right, on to the next story. I told you, what did I say at the beginning? You said I have a thin skin. I said that social media kills. It's a horrible thing. It's going to be the decline. It's going to be the decline of our society. And here's a story for you. A Hong Kong Instagram star tragically plummeted to her death after she slipped while snapping a selfie at a waterfall. The incident occurred after Sophia Chung, 32, and 3 friends embarked on a trip to Ha Pak Lai Park around 11 a.m. a few Saturdays ago. She decided to take selfies at the edge of a waterfall at the park's Pineapple Mountain site. It's a popular spot for hikers at sunset. She lost her footing and fell 16 feet, cracking her head and dying.
Let me tell you, there are so many inconsistencies.
Why?
Because you said it's a sun. They take the sundown pictures of the sundown.
Yeah.
And they went in the morning to take the pictures about the sundown.
Yeah, I don't know.
You see that part?
Yeah.
This was an inconsistency.
This is all reported by The Sun, which is a British paper. So who the hell knows?
What is the moral in the story?
The moral of the story is social media kills. People, like, someone would rather, we talked about your money or your life with Eliana. Well, here it's like your selfie shot or your life. People are texting and driving, not to mention the mental health effects of social media. It's deadly. It's poison. I don't want my kids on it, but it's too late.
No, it's not too late.
On to the last Asian story of the day. Having a robot read scripture to mourners seemed like a cost-effective idea to the people in the Sei Eco company. It's a plastics manufacturing company with a side business in the funeral business based in Tokyo. The company hired the child-sized robot named Pepper. They clothed it in the vestments of Buddhist clergy and programmed it to chant several sutras or Buddhist scriptures, depending on the sect of the deceased. And then the robot malfunctioned. And they were worried that what if they tried to use these at actual funerals? Do you have faith, in artificial intelligence and robots?
I'm still thinking of this. I think it pains me that one of the family members cannot chant the prayers, and they have to. What is it called? What is it called? No, what is it called? No. The like rent out. What is the term for renting out?
Lease.
No. the job they assign it to a
when they I know what you're talking about.
Okay, you get it?
Appropriate or something.
No.
Yeah, I know. Farm out the job. Yeah, whatever.
I think they should do it themselves.
Do you think that AI robots are going to get? Well, you know who we should have on is my new nephew who married my niece, who is a MIT graduate who specializes in robotics, who will probably be worth $500 million in the next 3 years.
So,
but I don't believe, they've been saying that TV news is going to die for the last 30 years. And like, you have to have a human element to things, right? Robots are not going to be flawless.
It's very funny that you say that TV has a human element when it's a screen.
Oh, all right. We'll be right back with with 3 questions for Grandma.
All right.
Sorry,
Speed it up.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
It's now time for 3 questions for Grandma. And I'm sort of disappointed in my children. These are actually somewhat logical questions for the most part. Usually they're a little more outrageous. But question number 1, why do chickens sit on their eggs?
I think they have to keep them warm.
Why? Is a chicken a reptile, by the way?
No!
It's not? But she just said live babies.
No,
Eliana.
No.
I said, what's the difference between a mammal?
No.
So what is it? It's not a mammal.
Chickens are birds. I know that there are 7 families. I remember from
I don't remember any of this. So there's mammals, reptiles.
There are the mammals, the reptiles,
Isakov would know this. Chud would know this.
No, Isakov wouldn't know it.
I guarantee Chud would know. 100% Isakov knows this. He listens to our podcast. Shout out to Steve Isakov, who I cheated off of in Pascal and Mr. Jern's class. I barely got into Brandeis. Steve went to Princeton, Harvard, this one. Now he's a MD, PhD.
Leave it down, Joel.
Should have him on as a guest, but he can't talk.
Why? He lost his tongue?
His hospital won't let. He's at Mass General.
All right, stop it.
But what is a chicken? So birds are separate than reptiles and mammals?
100%.
So there's like a separate category for just birds?
Separate birds. You want?
So what else?
Right after
so
this,
what's a
on
snake?
The way home, I'll Google it.
What's a snake? A reptile? So what's not a reptile, a snake, or a bird?
I mean,
a mammal. What's not a mammal, a bird, or a reptile?
I'll give it.
Like, is a monkey a mammal?
What about insect?
I don't know.
I will find the categories. I remember there were 7 when I was young. Maybe there are more now.
Okay, next question.
Or few. They died out from
Next question.
modernity and technology.
Why do people laugh when they go up high on the swing? Why do they laugh when they go up high on the
I
swing?
know the answer.
Why?
They're nervous.
Nervous laughter.
I have a nervous laughter.
It's a thrill. It's an adrenaline rush.
No, it's like a reaction, almost like a reflective reaction to the anxiety.
My young daughter Vita, the same reason people laugh when they snort cocaine sometimes. Gives them a boost of adrenaline. Third question, Carmela, because we're running heavy here. And this I know comes...
I hope there are no fact checkers out there because I BS my way through
When we get as big as Joe Rogan, people will fact check us. Until then, we do whatever the hell we want.
Okay. I like to do whatever the hell I want.
The last question, and I know this is a result of my beloved Mabel Rose, the queen of the household, my 15-and-a-half-year-old puggle. They want to know, why do old dogs get reactions like sneezing? Reaction's a big word. I was impressed. Why do old dogs get reactions like sneezing? Which is true. Mabel never sneezed in her life. I think she's allergic to the Florida grass.
Very frankly, I don't want to compare too much, but I feel at one with Mabel. We are 2 old ladies. I never had allergies, and in my old age, I have allergies. I think the same situation.
Carm, on live podcast recording stuff here, I want you to say that you absolve me of any guilt I might have about Mabel in regards to getting Ethelbug Johnson, a new puppy that I got for my kids. You think Mabel is okay?
He did not get it for his kids. He got it because
even you said it.
And this is what I have to say this. When you brought the little
you
puppy,
are the queen of extending when we're rapping. Go on, say it.
But it was very funny. You came with the dog.
Yes.
You made your 7-year-old daughter hide behind the bushes with the dog.
Correct.
You made your wife cock her phone
yes.
to shoot me.
Yes.
And you thought I would start to scream, what is this? I told you not to get the dog. I told you that you don't get the dog with an old dog. And it
was the worst possible reaction. You were happy. You said you thought she was cute.
And I said, oh my God, is this dog cute? I didn't do it to teach you a lesson. I really felt that dog is so adorable. It weighs 6 pounds, and I dread the moment when she will be 75.
So Mabel Rose, the puggle, and now we're the proud parents and grandparents of Ethelbug Johnson, who is 6 pounds,
family of 7
a European boxer. Things go full circle. Ethel is part German, same people that killed my grandfather. May he rest in peace.
I think you could keep that as a secret that she's part German, because I want to be very...
She's part Spanish, part German. But listen, absolve me of any guilt I'm having about Mabel.
Okay, I absolve you.
Thank you. That was the half cross. Everyone, any final thing to interrupt the wrapping of this show, Carmela?
No, this was a very... sad. That's why I had this attack of giggles afterwards, because it's building up tension.
It was a sullen, somber. May the memories of all those who died in Surfside be a blessing. Thank God for Eliana Salzhauer, who's going to get to the bottom of it. We love you, America. We'll see you next week.